All right, welcome in, Smite fans, to the SPL Weekly Recap for Week 6, featuring Finch and Dave, where we write the recaps for each other and then swap them and read them live for the very first time right here as part of this broadcast. So I'll start off with the very first set. That was United up against Rival. It kicked off the rematch portion of Phase 1, actually, here in Week 6, where teams will get a chance to shrug off those early season losses and take some revenge. One of those teams was Rival, who seemed ready to get the Rival loss to United Week 1 storyline off their back. A couple lengthy games started off the set, with Rival taking Game 1 after finding their team fight footing in the late game, but United bounced back in Game 2 after picking PBM, and their 10th attempt at the siege finally goes through 46 minutes in. Now, Game 3 was quick and easy, maybe one of the quickest sets I've seen this split so far. Fine OK, Twig, and Panda Cat all had a fantastic Game 3, highlighted by a peek at Ola run, and Rival would blow out United in 23 minutes. Now, we got to keep this video somewhat short, so here's me trying to summarize Game 2. 40-plus minutes games in about a minute. Oh, two 40-plus minute games in about a minute. Excuse me. Game 1 would show us United jumping out to a quick 5 kills before Twig was able to rotate on Poseidon and get Rival on the board. United continue to milk their gold lead of up to about 6K until 24 minutes in, Panda Cat turns around and a triple kill by the Fire Giant to give Rival a route back in. Back and forth team fights would occur, but the late game chainsaw, that is Sanford Soccer on Kali, eventually scaled and became too much. Rival take Game 1. Well, that's 45 seconds of the minute I had, so Game 2, where to look? I guess Irwin is good and shows us why Scylla is my favorite mid lane god. Seriously, pick her whenever you can. There's never a bad matchup and can completely dominate every game. Mifflin's even come around on the Scylla pick. Yeah, it's all
that
there
part is
for
true.
You. Rival put up great Phoenix defenses, but eventually United break the barrier and Hurry will finish 11-1. Hurry actually had a pretty good week. I'll talk about him later. Game 3, United sneak first blood away, but Rival wouldn't falter. Fine OK exerts pressure in the solo lane. PBM has a bounce back game on Yamoja, and Twig would look great. He also played the game well. Looks great and played great in game. 23 minutes, quick and easy for Team Rival. Time to go ahead and see what I wrote for Dave.
Yeah, Finch for Knights vs. Radiance, see what he wrote. Last set on Friday, well, it was a doozy between our two most recent world champion rosters. Kind of. The games the Knights won were close, coming down to late game team fights, positioning, and careful team play. The one game Radiance won was an all-out stomp, a result of relentless early game pressure gone unchecked. It made for an awesome set, but one dominated by Paul's mid-lane Hebo play. Maybe don't let him play it. In Game 1, things start incredibly slow. I'm talking sit-through Cloud Atlas slow. Is that still a relevant joke to make? I never watched it, so it's not relevant to me at least, but I imagine it's worthwhile and slow here. Even when the fight breaks out, though, nobody finds any big leads off of them. That is, until about the 26-minute mark, where the Knights leverage their mobility via Chernobog and Thor to start stretching Radiance thin. It also didn't hurt that Paul was leading all players in damage by the end of the game, and it turns out the SML guy playing Hebo is still really good, even in the SPL. Now in Game 2, Radiance drafted a ton of pressure. Bacchus, Camazotz, Hunbots, a Discordia passive to boot. That gave them a huge edge in the early game, and they did not give the Knights room to breathe. Radiance forced fight after fight, and there was nowhere for the Knights to run. It was worth noting Paul had another sick game on Hebo, but he couldn't overcome Radiance by himself. Do you guys want to hear my Hebro impression? What does he say?
Hebro,
bros. Hebro.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go, one of those. For the third time in a row, Paul was getting to play Hebo. Even with him on his signature god, Radiance dominated the game. The same way I'm going to be dominating some deadlifts once the gym opens back up. Form so important on those guys. Make sure you keep the back straight, flex at the hips, things like that. In fact, going into the final fight, Radiance had a 13k gold lead, but the Knights stalled until they could fight on even terms. Radiance spread out a little bit too much around the Fire Giant, and the Knights pounce. An all-in dive onto Cyclone and BMT leave Radiance with no damage. And the Knights basically win one fight and close out the rest. But that is all we had for Friday.
Hey, Obey and Sengwon started the SPL off on Saturday. Top team versus bottom team, highest stats versus lowest. So there's no need for me to break it down, right? Dave could just jump right back on and go.
Yep.
Obey, but Obey made a change. Sino's back. Okay, maybe things get interesting here. Seems like an injustice almost to gloss over the fact that in game 1, Obey win their first game of the split. But hey, Sino is good on Nike, and somehow Sengwon gets 2 kills, and Obey win game 1. Game 2, the Obey rocket ship would tumble back down to earth as Shinto shrugs off a tough game 1 and goes undying in game 2 for the win. Now into game 3, Obey load up their rocket with fuel, food, and Elon Musk's child, X812. I don't know how to say that. And for lack of it's 0 to 12, something like that. For lack of a better descriptor, they do it. Obey win. They beat Sengwon, a team in the race for first, and notch a win in the 1 column. It's a one win. Now, one thing Obey has been able to do consistently over the season so far is get Wolfie first blood. And hey, game 1 is no different. But can Obey iron out their mistakes and push the advantage to win? In short, yeah. By the end of this one, Sino was 1-0-10, affecting 11 of the 12 kills that Obey have at the Titans' fall. Ducky seemed to be playing with a renewed sense of confidence as well. He's finally got some help. Also with 11 affected kills on his Osiris. A game as clean as Dolson's room right after he decides it's finally time for its yearly cleaning. Obey don't slip and they take the win. Just one of those years.
Once a year, you're right.
Different game, same Wolfie, first blood. Turns out the man can play Raijin. Well, in a 3-main mid lane rotation will secure the kill. Sengwon are able to shrug off the rust from the first blood, however, and Shinto will return to form and pick up a few big kills. The Sengwon we all know and love showed themselves in game 2. After some good picks around cohesive team play, the LATAM boys are able to work their way into the Titan room for a 29-minute win. Well, it's time for Obey's date with Destiny. She's a very nice girl from down the block, and it's also time for Game 3. Obey have gotten a game win, but can they get a set win? Well, the universe felt out of sorts for a moment, as it wasn't Wolfie getting first blood, but it was still Obey, and Sino will chase down a retreating Netroid for the kill. In arguably the best game of the set for Sino, the Nike ganks and engagements will be met with team follow-up, and Obey looked fantastic. The dub squad, that's Wolfie and Wowie, of course, the double squad, because W, you'll get it, it'll stick, would had 10 of the 16 kills in the game by the end of it. Obey as a team became the true dub squad as the Titan would crumble. Sino seems to be a fantastic addition to this team, and Obey are finally on the board.
But that's it for Saturday. What did we have for us? Oh, wait, no. That was the start of Saturday, and now we have one more set that Finch wrote about for Saturday, and that was Space Station versus the Renegades. The last set on Saturday, literally the first thing you wrote for me, I should just stick to the script, I think, was surprisingly close. Awesome Jake and the boys have been stepping up their game lately, even against the elite competition like the Renegades. In fact, I think you could argue that Renegades played better this set. It just didn't end up mattering because they couldn't close out games. The final score may have read 2-0 SSG, but the actual games tell a bit of a different story. Game 1, despite the game being relatively close for the first 20 minutes or so, Dardes and Cherio were still popping off. Cherio was ruthlessly aggressive on his Erlang Shen in the jungle, constantly pressuring out Renegade's backline. That's not even to mention Dardes on his unique Hera pick. That also might be a good time to mention that I would let Hera step on me. Can I say that? Am I allowed to say that anyway? Hit me up if you look like Hera, please. The 1-2 punch gradually built a lead for Space Station until they overwhelmed the Renegades in 28 minutes. In Game 2, Lasper did his best Cherio impression, piloting the Erlang Shen to equal success. Barracuda also had a great game using his Chernobog to make a ton of big rotations. None of that would end up mattering though, because Vote similarly split pushes a whole Phoenix during an FG fight. That, plus one successful FG fight, stalled the game out. Then, in an odd fight in dual lane, cost the Renegades everything. Cherio finds a reset and a double kill on his late game Kali, and SSG only need that one small opportunity to win the game.
I guess that's it. Time for me. Sorry, Dave. I didn't realize it was going to be over that quick. Let's go on to Sunday. Game number 1, E United versus Radiance. It was a face-off between two teams coming off a loss. E United has shown a lot of growth, and the same could be said for Radiance. That said, coming into this one, it seemed like Radiance were more in need of a win in order to get the momentum back on track. Unfortunately for them, E United would have a day. Game 1 would be dominated by Snoopy on Chernobog after rotating out of the long lane, and E United strike first. Game 2, you can sprinkle in an Uller, toss in a couple great base defenses, give Scream Bastet, and apparently also give aggro chills. Yeah, it was a little bit uncomfortable. 2 birds, 1 stone sort of deal there. And it's a recipe for another E United win. E United take the set 2-0, Radiance looking to get their feet back underneath themselves. With how quick game 1 was, it's almost tough to break it down. A lead would start to be snowballed by a Snoopy double kill on the back of a Scream gank 2 minutes into the game. The picture was clear in game 1 for E United. Keep Cyclone Spin down. Long lane would be a graveyard by the end of the game, with Cyclone Spin littering the ground. 1-8-1 for the Radiance Hunter would about tell the story. Snoopy also finishes the game with more kills than Radiance had combined. With roster swaps being all the rage these days, hit me up, Radiance. My Neath is actually pretty solid. Maybe it could look a little bit better over there in the long lane. Game 2 would almost double the length of game 1, and we would get a back and forth, not unlike ping pong, until 20 minutes in, where Scream would leap into the Fire Giant pit and steal the Fire Giant away from Radiance. Also not unlike ping pong, where Dave beats everyone once he lets them get a small lead. I'm going to correct that later on. That wouldn't be enough to end the game, however, and would take some miracle defenses on both sides and continued mashing of the delete button from Scream to finally break down Radiance and take the set 2-0. Take us home, though, Dolson. I'm going to go relax upstairs in the Jolly Dwarf. Hey, that's a D&D shout-out.
There you go. Rival Renegades would round out the week, and the final set of the week was a true barn burner, with Rival basically having to win 3 games. They finished off games 1 and 3, but game 2 slipped away from them. It was vintage Barracuda making a couple miracle plays, but Rival were on a mission. It would eventually put the Renegades to rest. Now, game 1 was tremendously even, going until about the 23-minute mark without any real variance in the game. It all changed around one big team fight, though. Ironically, Sam gets picked early on, but that seems to embolden the Renegades. The tactical bait from Sam for Soccer ends being exactly what they needed. They started to chase, but Fino K pulls everyone in with life of the party. Those who survived his wrath would be met with a sanctified field from Captain Twig. Slowed beyond reproach, Renegades have no options for retreat and get barreled over by Rival. Now, game 2, the second game wasn't nearly as close, kind of like whenever I step up to the ping pong table at the office, immediately corrected on that. Right, you can't let me have it for too long. A little bit more accurate. It was pretty much entirely controlled by Rival. Renegades shake things up with the Susano solo and an Erlong Shen in the jungle, but it doesn't deter Captain Twig. He and Polar Bear Mike have a great early to mid game, running around the map with reckless abandon. Then Rival try to Horus ult to a Phoenix, but Barracuda is there to put on the brakes. Damn near a full team wipe and left, and Renegades are off to the races. SOT really starts to pop off as well, and a strong game for Rival suddenly collapses into an RNG victory. Game 3 was super close as well. The early to mid game yielded a slight edge for Rival, but it was honestly still very much even until the bitter end. A decision to load up on upgraded shells heavily mitigated SOT's dive potential the later the game went. Renegades had another strong performance, but at a 34-minute Fire Giant, Sam would not be denied and decimated the Renegades' backline. That's all, folks. I'm full-on Porky Pigging at the end of this one.
It's like the Looney Tunes. That's all, folks. Come on.
Yeah, right. There we go. That's all, folks. That's week 6, though, as written by Dave and Finch and as told by Finch and Dave. Make sure to stay tuned for week number 7.